There are moments, rare moments, when something inside you shifts without warning. You weren't searching for this message. You weren't preparing for it. And yet, here you are reading these very words, feeling something stir deep within your chest. That quiet tension, that unexplainable pull, that sudden stillness in your thoughts as if time itself paused just long enough for you to notice. This is different. This is not coincidence. This is not just another message passing through your screen. This is a divine interruption. And he is here. Archangel Michael does not arrive in silence when urgency is required. He does not whisper when danger is near. He steps forward with presence, with authority, with a force that shakes the spirit awake. And right now he is not calm. He is not gentle. He is not distant. He is angry. Not with you, but for you. Can you feel it? That sudden awareness creeping in, the sense that something around your life has not been right lately. The strange heaviness you couldn't explain. The subtle unease that followed you even in quiet moments. The way your intuition tried to speak but you brushed it aside, telling yourself it was nothing. But it was nothing. And deep down you know it. Because something has been building. Slowly. Quietly. Behind the scenes of your everyday life. Not loud enough to alarm you, but persistent enough to disturb your peace. You felt it in your sleep. You felt it in your thoughts. You felt it in the way certain situations subtly change without reason. That is why this message found you now. Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Now. Because heaven does not interrupt without purpose. And Archangel Michael does not step in unless something significant is about to unfold. You were chosen to hear this because you are still listening. Even when the world is loud, you still hear the subtle voice within. Even when others ignore the signs, you notice the patterns. Even when logic tries to silence your instincts, your spirit refuses to fully disconnect. That is why you are here. And that is why he is speaking directly to you. Here is something approaching, a shift, a disruption, a moment that will not arrive quietly. It will test the stability of everything around you. And if you are not aware, if you are not aligned, it could catch you off guard in ways you are not prepared for. But this is where everything changes. Because you are not being left unguarded. You are not being abandoned to face what's coming alone. Archangel Michael is standing in the gap right now between you and what is forming. Do you understand what that means? It means the storm has already begun to gather. It means the pressure you've been feeling is not random. It means something tried to reach you but was stopped. And it means this message, this exact moment, is your warning before impact. There is no accident in divine timing. Every second that led you here, every scroll, every pause, every distraction you resisted, it all aligned so that you would not miss this. Because missing this would cost more than you realize. You may not see the full picture yet. You may not fully understand what is coming. But your spirit recognizes the weight of this moment. That's why you feel it. That's why your focus is locked in right now. That's why something inside you is saying, pay attention. And you must. Because this is only the beginning. What you are about to hear next will reveal why Michael's anger has been ignited and what exactly is forming in the shadows of your life. This is not a message you listen to passively. This is a message you receive. This is your awakening point. This is your alert. And from this moment forward, nothing can be ignored the same way again. Type I am alert in the comments if you feel this message is for you. Blessing code 1717 is now activated around you. There is something you must understand right now, something most people never grasp, even after years of spiritual searching. When Archangel Michael speaks with calm authority, it is guidance. When he speaks with urgency, it is protection. But when he speaks with anger, it is because something has crossed a line in the spiritual realm that cannot be ignored any longer. And that is where you are standing right now. This is not symbolic anger. This is not human frustration. This is divine intensity, focused, precise, and purposeful. Because heaven does not react emotionally the way people do. Heaven responds when order is disrupted, when alignment is threatened, when something dangerous begins to move too close to what has been marked for protection. And right now something has moved too close to you. Michael's anger is not directed at your mistakes. It is not because you failed. It is not because you missed something. His anger is rising because something has attempted to bypass divine boundaries that were placed around your life. Something has tried to interfere, to shift, to enter a space it was never authorized to enter. Do you remember that feeling, that moment when something didn't sit right, but you couldn't explain why? When a situation seemed normal on the surface, but your spirit felt uneasy. When you sensed something was off, but everyone around you acted like everything was fine. That was the first signal. That was the moment heaven began to stir. Because divine anger does not appear suddenly. It builds when warnings are ignored, when subtle signs are dismissed, when something continues to push forward despite resistance. And now, that resistance has reached its peak. Michael is stepping forward not just as a protector but as a defender of divine order. You have to understand the weight of that. When he says he is angry, it means intervention has already begun. It means something was allowed to approach just close enough to reveal its intent but not close enough to succeed. It means you were closer to destruction than you realize. But you were never alone in that moment. You was there, watching, standing, blocking. There are forces, situations, and moments in life that appear ordinary but carry deeper consequences beneath the surface. And when those moments begin to align in a way that could create harm, heaven does not remain passive. Heaven responds. And Michael is the one sent when that response must be immediate. That is why his tone is different now. Because this is not a distant warning. This is an active situation. Something has been forming with precision. Not chaos, not randomness, but intention. And that intention has triggered a response from the highest level of spiritual authority assigned to your protection. Can you feel the seriousness of that? This is not about fear. This is about awareness. Because when heaven raises its voice, it is not to scare you. It is to wake you up before something unfolds without your understanding. And right now, you are being pulled into awareness because what is coming cannot be navigated blindly. Michael's anger is also a sign of proximity. It means the situation is no longer far away. It is not something that might happen someday. It is something that has entered the present moment. Something that is close enough to require your attention now, not later, not eventually, not when it becomes obvious, but now, while there is still time to adjust, to align, to prepare. And here is what most people bit wrong. They think divine protection means nothing bad can come near them. But that is not how it works. Protection often means something was allowed to come close enough to test your awareness, but not close enough to break you. It means there was a line drawn, something attempted to cross it, and that attempt is what has stirred Michael's anger. You are standing in a moment where heaven has already intervened, but your awareness must now catch up with what has already been done for you. Because protection is not only about being shielded, it is also about being conscious of what you are being shielded from. That is why you are hearing this now. Because if you remain unaware, if you continue moving as if everything is normal, you could unknowingly step into something that was already being held back from you. And that cannot happen. Not now. Not when the warning has already been given. Michael is not just speaking to you. He is positioning you. He is shifting your focus, sharpening your perception, and pulling your attention away from distractions so you can recognize the seriousness of this moment. Because what is coming next will reveal exactly what has been forming, why it has been allowed to come this close, and what you must understand before the storm fully shows itself. This is the point where everything begins to make sense or everything is missed. And you cannot afford to miss it. Type "I understand" the warning in the comments if you feel this deeply. Blessing code 2222 is now surrounding your path. There is a moment right before a storm breaks when everything appears almost normal. The sky may still look calm. The air may feel steady. People continue moving, talking, living as if nothing is about to change. But beneath that calm surface, something is already forming, pressure building, forces aligning, a shift quietly gaining strength that cannot be stopped once it reaches its peak. That is the moment you are in right now. And the reason this message carries urgency is because you are not being warned after the storm, you are being warned before it fully arrives. Archangel Michael is not speaking in possibilities. He is speaking in certainty. Something is forming with intention, and it is moving closer with each passing moment. Not randomly, not without direction, but specifically toward an area of your life that has already been marked as sensitive, as important, as connected to your future path. This is why you have felt unsettled, because your spirit recognizes movement before your eyes can see it. Think about the past few days, or even weeks. The subtle tension that seemed to come out of nowhere. The situations that felt slightly off, even if they didn't escalate. The conversations that carried a strange energy. The moments where you paused and thought, something doesn't feel right, but then move on, convincing yourself it was nothing. It was not nothing. It was the early wind of the storm brushing against your awareness. Storms do not appear instantly. They gather. They form layer by layer, piece by piece, until the moment they can no longer be contained. And what makes this storm dangerous is not just its presence but its timing. It is forming at a moment when your guard has been divided, when your attention has been pulled in multiple directions, when your focus has not been fully anchored. That is not coincidence. That is strategy. Because the most impactful disruptions do not come when you are fully prepared. They come when you are distracted, when you are slightly off balance, when you are moving through life assuming everything will continue as it has been. But something is about to break that pattern. This is not necessarily a storm you will see coming in obvious ways. It may not look like chaos at first. It may appear as a sudden shift, an unexpected event, a decision point, or a situation that escalates faster than it should. And that is what makes it dangerous, because it will test your reaction before it reveals its true nature. Michael is warning you now so that your response is not driven by confusion, fear, or impulse. Because once the storm begins to show itself, there will not be time to figure things out from the beginning. You will either recognize what is happening or you will be pulled into it. And there is a difference between witnessing a storm and being caught inside it. Right now, you are being positioned to witness, to understand, to stay anchored while it unfolds around you. But if you ignore this moment, if you treat this as just another message, just another passing thought, you risk stepping directly into the path of something that was never meant to touch you. This is why Michael said he is the one standing between you and the storm. Because without that barrier you would already be inside it. Let that sink in. Something has already been held back. Something has already been delayed. Something has already been prevented from reaching you fully. But the pressure is still there. And pressure always seeks release. This is why your awareness now matters more than anything else. Because storms do not just affect circumstances, They affect decisions, emotions, clarity, and direction. They create moments where people act without thinking, speak without understanding, and move without alignment. And those moments can change everything. But not for you. Not if you remain aware. Not if you stay aligned with the warning that has been given. You are not powerless in this. You are not being left to figure it out alone. You are being guided before the impact, positioned before the shift, awakened before the moment that will test everything around you. And here is the truth most people will never hear in time: the storm is not the end, is a turning point. But whether it becomes destruction or redirection depends entirely on how prepared you are when it arrives. And you right now are being prepared. The next part of this message will reveal the signs you have already experienced, the clues that were placed in your path to warn you before this moment fully unfolded. Because nothing about this has been hidden from you. It has only been overlooked. And that is about to change. Type "I see the storm" before IT comes in the comments if you are ready. Blessing code 3333 is now activated around your awareness. As this revelation settles into your spirit, understand this: every moment of awareness you receive is not just for you. It is meant to reach others who are still walking in silence. This message is a seed, and every seed must be sown to multiply. When you choose to support this mission through the PayPal link in the description or the super thanks below, you are not giving to a voice. You are releasing light into someone else's darkness. The Lord says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over." And this is not just a promise. It is a living flow that returns to you multiplied. I feel led to say this directly. When I give into this message, I am helping God reach someone who desperately needs this warning. Do not ignore this moment of prompting, because obedience in this instant carries power beyond what you can see. Your seed becomes a river, your support becomes a lifeline, and your action becomes a prophetic step into alignment. Go now, act in faith, and release what heaven is asking you to release. There is something you need to face now, not with fear, not with regret, but with clarity. Because the truth is, this storm did not begin today. It did not suddenly appear out of nowhere. It has been announcing itself to you, quietly, subtly, persistently, for longer than you realize. And the reason this message feels so intense right now is because deep inside, you recognize that you have already seen pieces of it. You just didn't fully accept what you were seeing. Think back carefully. There were moments, small, always forgettable moments, when your spirit tried to alert you. A sudden pause in your thoughts. The feeling that something wasn't aligned. A hesitation before making a decision that seemed simple on the surface. You may have brushed it off, told yourself you were overthinking, or convinced yourself that everything was fine. But those were not random interruptions. Those were signals. Heaven rarely shouts first. It whispers. And those whispers have been following you. There were shifts in people around you. Someone's tone changed without explanation. Someone's energy felt different even though their words stayed the same. You noticed it, even if you didn't say it out loud. You felt it in the way conversations ended too quickly, or lingered too long with an unspoken tension. You felt it in the way certain situations left you drained instead of at peace. That was a sign. There were also moments when your environment itself felt different. Not dramatically, but enough for you to notice. A place that once felt comfortable suddenly felt heavy. A routine that once felt stable began to feel uncertain. Even your own thoughts, your clarity, your focus, shifted in ways that didn't make sense at the time. That was another sign. And then there were the internal signals, the ones you couldn't explain to anyone else. the restlessness, the sudden need to step back from something without knowing why. The quiet voice inside you saying, "Wait, look again, pay attention." You may have ignored it because there was no clear evidence, no logical reason to act on it. But that voice was not guessing. It was guiding. What you are beginning to understand now is that nothing about these experiences was accidental. Each one was a piece of a larger pattern forming around you. A pattern that was subtle enough to avoid panic, but consistent enough to create awareness. If you were willing to see it, and you did see it, even if you didn't fully acknowledge it. This is where most people fail. They wait for something obvious, something undeniable, something dramatic enough that they no longer have a choice but to react. But by the time something becomes obvious, it is often too late to respond with clarity. The advantage you have right now is that you are being shown the pattern before it reaches that point. You are being given the chance to connect the signs. Because when you look back now, everything begins to align. The feeling you had last week, the moment of hesitation you dismissed, the subtle discomfort you couldn't explain, the shift in energy that made no sense at the time. None of it was isolated. None of it was random. It was all leading to this awareness. Archangel Michael is not just warning you about what is coming. He is revealing what has already been happening. Because once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Once you recognize the signs, you cannot go back to being unaware. And that is exactly where he needs you to be right now. Fully conscious, fully alert, fully aligned with what your spirit has been trying to tell you all along. This is not about blaming yourself for what you overlooked. This is about reclaiming your awareness before the situation progresses further. Because the storm gains power in confusion, in distraction, in hesitation. But it loses its impact when you are clear, when you are grounded, when you are no longer ignoring what is right in front of you. And now, you are no longer ignoring it. You are seeing it. You are understanding it. You are waking up to it. This is the turning point. Because the same signs you once questioned will now become your guidance. The same intuition you once doubted will now become your strength. And the same awareness you once pushed aside will now become your protection. But there is something even more important you must understand as you move forward. Recognizing the signs is only the first step. The next step is understanding how close this storm truly is and how much has already been done to keep it from reaching you fully. Because what stands between you and what is coming is not passive, it is active, it is intentional, and it is stronger than you realize. And that is exactly what will be revealed next. Type "I trust what I felt" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Lesson code 4444 is now strengthening your discernment. There is something you must fully grasp now, because it changes everything about how you see this moment. The storm is real. The pressure is building. The signs have already been revealed. But despite all of that, you are still standing. You are still stable. You are still here, listening, aware, and not overwhelmed by what could have already reached you. That is not luck. That is not coincidence. That is intervention. Archangel Michael is not speaking from a distance. He is not observing your situation from afar. He is actively positioned between you and what is forming. And what you must understand is this. If he were not there, if that barrier were not in place, the impact you are being warned about would have already touched your life in ways you are not prepared for. Let that settle deeply. Because this is not about what might happen. This is about what has already been prevented. There are moments in life when something tries to move toward you, an event, a conflict, a disruption, and yet, somehow, it slows down and delays. The other dates. It does not land with the force it was meant to carry. You may have even noticed situations that almost escalated but did. Moments that felt like they were about to turn, but then suddenly shifted or dissolved. That was not random. That was the barrier holding. Michael's role is not symbolic. It is active, precise, and intentional. It stands at the point where what is forming meets what is protected. And right now, that line is being tested. Not broken, but tested. Because something has continued to push forward despite resistance. Something has tried to find an opening, a weakness, a moment where your awareness is low enough for it to pass through unnoticed. But it has not succeeded. And the reason it has not succeeded is because you have not been left unguarded. You need to understand the intensity of what that means. Protection at this level is not passive. It requires constant presence. It requires awareness from both sides, the one who guards and the one who is being guarded. And while Michael has been holding the line, your awareness is now being called to align with that protection. Because a barrier can block what approaches from the outside, but it cannot protect you from stepping into something unknowingly. This is why this message is reaching you now. Because the protection is still in place, but your movement, your decisions, your focus must now match that protection. You cannot move carelessly in a moment like this. You cannot assume everything is safe simply because nothing has happened yet. You cannot ignore what you now know. Because knowing changes responsibility. Right now, you are being shown that there is a separation between where you are and what is trying to reach you. And that separation is being maintained intentionally. But it is not permanent unless you remain aligned with it. It is not automatic unless you stay aware of it. There is a difference between being protected and staying within protection. And that difference is where many people fail. They are guarded but unaware. They are shielded but distracted. They are warned but dismissive. And because of that, they slowly move closer to what was once being held back from them, until they unknowingly cross into the very situation they were meant to avoid. That will not be your story. Not if you understand this moment correctly. Michael is not just standing between you and the storm. He is holding back the full force of something that has already tried to move toward you. And the reason he is angry is because that attempt should not have come this close in the first place. But it did. And now, the response is active, focused, and unwavering. You are standing in a protected space right now. A space where impact has been reduced, where timing has been delayed, where outcomes have been shifted in your favor before you even realized what was happening. But this space requires your awareness to remain intact, because protection is strongest when you are aligned with it. You may begin to notice something after this moment, a clarity in your perception, a sharper awareness of what feels right and what does not. Situations that once seemed normal will begin to stand out. Patterns that were hidden will become obvious. That is not coincidence. That is alignment with the protection that has already been placed around you. And as that awareness increases, you will begin to see exactly how close certain things came and how intentionally they were kept from reaching you. That realization will change how you move. It will change how you respond. It will change how you decide what to step into and what to step away from. Because now you know there is a line. And now you know it is being guarded. But there is still something you must understand next. Because not everyone will recognize this moment the way you are beginning to. Not everyone will respond with awareness. And that is why many will miss the warning entirely, even while it is being clearly given. And that is what will be revealed next. Type "I am protected and aware" in the comments if you receive this. Blessing code 5555 is now surrounding your protection. There is a truth you must face right now, and it may feel unsettling at first, but it is necessary for your clarity. Not everyone will recognize what is happening. Not everyone will feel the urgency. Not everyone will respond to this moment the way you are being called to respond. And that is exactly why this becomes a test. Because when a warning is given before a storm, it does not arrive with noise, with chaos, or with undeniable proof. It arrives quietly. It arrives through awareness. It arrives through subtle shifts that only those who are paying attention will recognize. And most people are not paying attention. They are distracted. They are comfortable. They are moving through life assuming that what they see is all that exists. But you are not in that position anymore. You have been pulled out of that state of passive movement and placed into awareness. And once awareness is given, it becomes a responsibility. Because you can no longer say, "I didn't know." You can no longer claim that nothing felt different. You can no longer ignore the shift that has already begun to unfold around you. This is where the separation begins. There will be people around you who continue as if nothing is happening. They will speak the same way, act the same way, make the same decisions, and dismiss anything that does not fit their current understanding. They will not feel what you feel. They will not see what you see. And if you try to explain it to them, they may even question you, doubt you, or convince you to lower your awareness back to their level. That is part of the test. Because awareness often isolates before it protects. You may begin to notice that your perception feels sharper than others. That you are picking up on things they overlook. That you are pausing where they rush forward. That you are questioning what they accept without thought. And in those moments, you will be tempted to ignore your own awareness just to remain comfortable, just to stay aligned with what everyone else is doing. But you cannot afford to do that now. Not in this moment. Because this is not just about what is happening around you. It is about how you respond to what you now know. Many people will miss this warning not because it wasn't given, but because they chose not to recognize it. They will explain it away. They will rationalize it. They will continue moving without adjusting their awareness. And when the storm finally reveals itself, they will be caught in reaction instead of prepared in understanding. That is the difference. Preparation versus reaction. And you are being placed on the side of preparation. This is why this moment feels heavier than usual. This is why your focus has shifted. This is why something inside you is telling you to stay present, to stay alert, to not brush this aside. Because your spirit recognizes that this is not ordinary. This is a dividing point. On one side, there are those who remain unaware, who move forward without adjustment, who rely only on what they can see and ignore what they can feel. On the other side, there are those who recognize the shift early, who trust their awareness, who align themselves before the situation fully unfolds. You are being positioned on that second side. But that position must be maintained. Because awareness is not a one-time realization. It is a continuous state. It requires you to stay present, to stay grounded, to stay connected to what you are sensing even when it does not make immediate sense. It requires you to trust that what you feel is valid, even when others do not confirm it. And this is where many fail. They receive the warning, but they do not sustain the awareness. They feel the shift, but they return to distraction. They recognize something is different, but they choose comfort over clarity. And in doing so, they drift back into the very state that leaves them unprepared. That will not happen to you. Because you are being told directly what is at stake. You are being shown that this is not a moment to relax your awareness, not a moment to assume everything will resolve on its own, not a moment to follow the crowd simply because it feels easier. This is a moment to stay aligned with what you now know. You may feel a growing sense of separation, not necessarily physical, but mental and emotional. A difference in how you perceive things compared to those around you. That is not something to fear. That is something to understand. Because awareness always sets you apart before it protects you. And as this awareness continues to deepen, you will begin to see even more clearly what is forming, what is approaching, and what must be recognized before the situation reaches its peak. Because the storm is not just an external event. It carries intention. It carries direction. And it is moving with a purpose that must be understood before you can fully stand firm against it. That is what will be revealed next. Type "I choose awareness" in the comments if you stand in this understanding. Lesson code 6666 is now strengthening your discernment and focus. Now you must go deeper because what you are facing is not just a storm without direction. It is not random. It is not meaningless. It is not simply a sequence of unfortunate events aligning by chance. There is a strategy behind it. There is intention behind it. And if you do not understand that intention, you risk misreading the entire situation when it begins to unfold. This is where many people lose clarity. They see the storm, but they do not see what the storm is carrying. And that is the difference between being aware and being truly prepared. Archangel Michael is not only warning you about impact, he is revealing purpose. Because this storm is not just meant to shake circumstances around you. It is meant to reach something within you. Your focus, your stability, your decision-making, your emotional response, your alignment. That is the true target. You must understand this clearly. The enemy does not always attack directly. It rarely approaches in a way that is obvious or easily identified. Instead, it moves through situations, through timing, through pressure points in your life that are already sensitive. It uses what is already present, amplifies it, and introduces disruption at the exact moment when your guard is not fully anchored. That is strategy. And that is what is happening now. The storm is carrying layers. On the surface, it may look like a situation, an event, a conversation, or a sudden shift that demands your attention. But beneath that surface, there is something else being pushed toward you: confusion, doubt, impulsive reaction, misalignment. Because if your clarity is disrupted, everything else begins to shift with it. Think carefully. The enemy does not need to destroy everything around you to create impact. He only needs to influence one decision, one reaction, one moment where you act without full awareness. That single moment can redirect your path, shift your focus, and place you in a position you were never meant to be in. That is why the storm is dangerous. Not because of what it looks like, but because of what it attempts to provoke within you. It will try to rush you. It will try to pressure you. It will try to make you feel like you must act immediately, speak immediately, respond immediately, before you have time to fully process what is actually happening. And in that rush, clarity is replaced with reaction. That is the opening. That is the strategy. But you are not being left vulnerable to that. Because now you know. And now you understand that what approaches you may not be what it appears to be. That what seems urgent may not require immediate action. That what feels intense may be designed to override your awareness. And once you understand that, the strategy begins to lose its power. There may also be something else you need to recognize. A storm may come through familiar channels, through people, situations, or environments that you already know. It may not look foreign or threatening at first. In fact, it may appear normal, even convincing. But something about it will feel off. That is your signal. That is where your awareness must remain sharp, because the strategy relies on familiarity. It relies on you letting your guard down because it appears to come from something or someone you recognize. And in that moment of lowered awareness, it attempts to move closer. But you are no longer in that state. You are not unaware anymore. You are not moving blindly anymore. You are watching. You are listening. You are discerning. And that changes everything. Because the moment you refuse to react impulsively, the moment you pause instead of rushing, the moment you observe instead of immediately engaging, you break the pattern the storm is trying to create. You disrupt the strategy. You remove its advantage. And that is exactly why this message came before the storm, not after. Because once the storm begins, it will try to pull your attention outward, toward the situation, toward the noise, toward the pressure. But your strength will come from staying inward, anchored, aware, and unmoved by what is trying to shift you. This is not about resisting everything. This is about recognizing what deserves your response and what is trying to force one. There is a difference, and that difference will protect you. Archangel Michael is not just standing between you and the storm. He is exposing what the storm is carrying so that you are not caught off guard by its deeper purpose. Because once you see the strategy, you are no longer vulnerable to it in the same way. You begin to move differently. You begin to respond differently. You begin to stand in a position where the storm can pass, but it cannot take anything from you. And that is where you must remain. Because what comes next is not just awareness, it is decision. A moment where you will be required to choose how you respond, how you align, and what you do in real time as everything begins to unfold. And that moment is closer than you think. Type I see the strategy clearly in the comments if you understand this. Blessing code 7777 in now strengthening your discernment and protection. This is where everything becomes real. Not theoretical. Not distant. Not something you can delay or revisit later when it feels more convenient. Because awareness without action creates vulnerability. And now that you see the pattern, now that you understand the strategy, now that you recognize the signs, you have entered the moment where a decision must be made. And that decision will determine how this storm passes through your life. You must understand something clearly. The storm does not control the outcome. You do. Not by force, not by resistance, but by alignment. By how you choose to respond when the pressure begins to rise. By whether you move from awareness or fall back into reaction. This is the moment where many people fail. They receive the warning. They feel the shift. They even recognize that something is different. But when the situation actually arrives, they forget everything they were shown. They get pulled into urgency. They respond emotionally. They act too quickly. And in that moment, they step directly into what they were meant to avoid. That cannot happen here. Not after everything you now understand. Because this moment is not about doing more. It is about doing differently. You must slow down. That is the first instruction. When something suddenly demands your attention, when something feels urgent, when something tries to pull you into immediate action, pause. Not for a second, not casually, but intentionally. Create space between what is happening and how you respond to it. Because that space is where your protection operates. That space is where clarity returns. That space is where the influence of the storm loses its grip. You must also become selective with your energy. Not everything that appears in front of you deserves your reaction. Not every conversation requires your input. Not every situation requires your involvement. And in moments like this, knowing what not to engage with becomes just as important as knowing what to respond to. This is where discernment becomes action. Because the storm will try to pull you outward, to make you focus on what is happening around you, to draw your attention into the noise, the confusion, the urgency. But your strength will come from staying inward, grounded, steady, and aware of what you already know. You are not reacting anymore. You are observing. You are not rutting anymore. You are choosing. There is also something else you must be willing to do in this moment. Detach. Not emotionally in a cold or distant way, but strategically. If something feels off, if something is not aligned, if something creates pressure that does not match clarity, you must be willing to step back from it, even if it feels uncomfortable to do so. Because comfort is not your priority right now. Alignment is. There may be moments where stepping back feels like you are missing something, where not responding immediately feels unnatural, where choosing silence over reaction feels difficult. But those are the exact moments where your awareness is being tested. And every time you choose awareness over impulse, you strengthen your position. Every time you pause instead of rushing, you remain protected. Every time you trust what you feel instead of what is being forced in front of you, you stay aligned with the barrier that has already been placed around you. This is how you move through the storm without being pulled into it. Not by avoiding everything, not by fearing what is coming, but by standing in a place where nothing can move you unless you allow it. This is your moment of control, and it does not come from force, it comes from clarity. Archangel Michael is not just holding the line for you. He is expecting you to hold your position as well, to meet the protection that has been placed around you with awareness, discipline, and intention. Because protection without participation weakens. The protection with alignment becomes unbreakable. You are not being asked to do something impossible. You are being asked to remain aware of what you already know, to trust what you have already felt, to act from clarity instead of pressure. And if you do that, the storm will pass without taking anything from you. That is the outcome that is being secured right now. But it depends on this moment, on this decision, on how you choose to move from here. Because the next step will go even deeper. It will reveal what must be released, what cannot move forward with you, and what must be separated before this storm reaches its peak. And that is something you must be ready to face. Type "I choose clarity over reaction" in the comments if you receive this. Blessing code 8888 is now strengthening your alignment and decisions. As you stand in this moment of decision, understand this truth. Every step you take in alignment does not only shift your life, it opens a path for others who are still searching for light. This message is not just information, it is a seed of awakening, and every seed must be sown to multiply across souls. When I give into this mission through the PayPal link in the description or the super thanks below, I am helping God reach someone who is still lost in the storm. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days," and this is a living promise unfolding through your obedience. Your support becomes a river that carries truth into places you may never see, but heaven records every drop. Do not hesitate in this moment, because giving now is not an option. It is a response to what God is doing through you. Step forward, release your seed, and become part of the light that breaks through someone else's darkness. Now comes the part most people try to avoid but cannot escape if they truly want to remain protected. Because awareness will always lead to separation, not as punishment, not as loss, but as alignment. You cannot carry everything with you into a moment like this. You cannot remain connected to what disturbs your clarity and still expect to move through the storm untouched. And this is where the message becomes personal, because what must be released is not always obvious and it is not always easy. but it is necessary. There are connections, environments, habits, and even thought patterns that no longer align with where you are being positioned right now. And before this storm reaches its full expression, those misalignments must be addressed. Not later, not when it becomes unavoidable, but now, while you still have the awareness to act from clarity instead of reaction. You may already feel it, a subtle distance forming between you and certain people, that growing discomfort in spaces that once felt normal, that internal resistance when you consider continuing certain routines or engaging in certain conversations. You may have tried to ignore it, to push through it, to maintain what has always been familiar, but it is becoming harder to ignore, because your spirit is no longer in agreement with what your mind is trying to justify. This is the beginning of separation, and it does not always come with clear explanations. It does not always come with conflict or closure. Sometimes it comes as a quiet knowing, a realization that something no longer belongs in your current alignment, even if it once did. You must trust that knowing, because what you are being asked to release is not random. It is directly connected to what is trying to reach you through the storm. Anything that weakens your awareness, anything that distracts your focus, anything that pulls you back into reaction instead of clarity becomes a potential opening. And openings cannot be left unguarded in a moment like this. This does not mean you must cut everything off abruptly or act in extremes. This is not about chaos or emotional decisions. This is about intentional distance, strategic withdrawal, choosing not to engage where you once did, choosing not to invest energy where it no longer returns clarity or stability. This is where your discipline is tested, because letting go is rarely comfortable. Familiarity creates attachment, even when it no longer serves you. You may feel the urge to hold on, to give it one more chance, to wait until you are absolutely certain. But the truth is, you already feel the shift. You already know what is misaligned. And waiting for more confirmation only delays what you are being called to do. There may also be internal patterns you must release. Ways of thinking that lead you into doubt, hesitation, or overreaction. Habits of second-guessing your awareness. Tendencies to prioritize comfort over clarity. These patterns may feel subtle, but in moments of pressure, they become amplified. And the storm will amplify everything. So what you carry into it matters. You cannot move forward with divided awareness. You cannot stay aligned while constantly being pulled back into old patterns. You cannot remain protected while holding on to what creates confusion. This is why separation must happen now, not as a reaction to the storm, but as preparation before it fully arrives. And here is what you must remember as you move through this process: you are not losing anything that is meant to remain with you. Anything that is truly aligned with your path will not be affected by this separation. It will remain steady. It will remain clear. It will not create pressure or confusion. It will not pull you out of alignment. What falls away was already out of place. You are simply becoming aware of it now. Archangel Michael is not only standing between you and the storm, he is guiding you away from what could bring you closer to it. And that guidance may feel like distance, like change, like a shift you did not expect. But it is protection in motion. You must be willing to follow that movement, even when it feels unfamiliar, even when it requires you to step away from what you once accepted, even when it challenges your comfort. Because what you release now determines how you stand when the storm reaches its peak. And if you release correctly, if you align fully, if you trust what you already know, you will find yourself in a position where the storm can move but it cannot touch you. That is the outcome being prepared, but it requires your participation. And the next step will show you how to fully align with that protection, how to stand in a place where nothing can reach you without your awareness, your consent, or your movement toward it. That is where you are being led next. Type "I release what no longer serves me" in the comments if you accept this. Blessing code 9999 is now activating your separation and protection. Now you arrive at the most critical position in this entire message, the place where everything you have heard, everything you have felt, and everything you have recognized must come together into one clear state, alignment. Because protection is not just about what stands around you. It is about where you choose to stand within it. Archangel Michael is already positioned. The barrier is already active. The storm has already been identified. But your safety in this moment is not automatic. It is intentional. It depends on whether you align yourself with what is already being done for you or whether you drift outside of it through distraction, doubt, or misstep. This is what divine alignment means. It is not complicated. It is not unreachable. But it does require focus. You must bring yourself into a state where your thoughts, your actions, and your awareness are no longer scattered, no longer divided, no longer pulled in different directions by external noise. Because the moment your attention becomes scattered, your alignment weakens. And when your alignment weakens, you become more vulnerable to what is trying to reach you. This is why stillness becomes your strength. Not inactivity, but intentional stillness. A place where you are not reacting to everything that appears. A place where you are not allowing urgency to dictate your decisions. A place where you are grounded enough to observe before you move, to listen before you respond, to feel before you decide. This is where protection becomes strongest. Because when you are still, you can recognize what belongs and what does not. When you are grounded, you can sense what aligns and what disrupts. When you are aware, you cannot be easily pulled into something that is not meant for you. And this is exactly what is required now. You must also remain consistent. Alignment is not something you choose once. It is something you maintain. It is the decision to stay aware even after the moment passes. It is the discipline to continue observing even when everything appears calm again. Because storms often create false calm before their peak. They create moments where everything seems fine again, where the urgency fades, where the pressure lifts just enough for you to relax. That is where many people lose alignment. They return to old patterns. They drop their awareness. They assume the moment hath passed. And in doing so, they step out of the very protection that was holding them. You cannot do that now. You must remain steady. Even when things feel normal again. Even when nothing seems urgent. Even when the environment around you appears unchanged. Because your alignment is not based on what you see. It is based on what you know. And what you know now has already been revealed to you. There is also something deeper you must hold on to in this moment. Trust. Not blind trust. Not passive belief. But a grounded certainty that you are not navigating this alone. That the protection around you is active. That the warning you received was intentional. That the awareness you now carry is not something to question, but something to rely on. Because doubt weakens alignment, and clarity strengthens it. You may feel moments where you question yourself, where you wonder if you are overthinking, overanalyzing, or reading too deeply into things. That is natural. But in this moment, you must return to what you felt at the beginning. The clarity, the recognition, the knowing that something is different. That knowing is your anchor. Stay with it. There may also be external pressure to pull you out of alignment. Situations that demand quick responses. People who expect immediate answers. circumstances that try to rush your decisions. But you must remain firm in your position. You are not rutting. You are not reacting. You are not stepping outside of your awareness to satisfy urgency. You are standing. And that stance is your protection. Because when you are fully aligned, nothing can move you without your awareness. Nothing can reach you without your recognition. Nothing can disrupt you without first revealing itself. That is the power of alignment. Archangel Michael is not only standing between you and the storm. He is holding a space where you can remain untouched by it. But that space is not something you observe from a distance. It is something you must step into fully, consciously, and consistently. This is your position now. A position of awareness. A position of stillness. A position of clarity. And as long as you remain there, the storm can move around you, but it cannot take anything from you. This is the protection that has been established. This is the alignment you must maintain. Because what comes next will reveal the final truth, the outcome of this moment. What happens if you remain aligned, and what happens if this warning is ignored? And that is something you must fully understand before this storm reaches its final point. Type "I stand in alignment" in the comments if you receive this truth. Blessing code 1010 is now sealing your protection and clarity. And now the truth must be made clear, not to frighten you, but to ground you in reality. Because every warning carries two paths. Every moment of awareness creates a division. And what happens next will not be random. It will be the direct result of how this moment is handled. You are standing at a point of outcome. Not a future that is uncertain, but a future that is already forming based on your alignment. If you listen, truly listen, not just with your ears but with your actions, your awareness, your discipline, then what is coming will not break you. It will not destabilize you. It will not take from you what you are meant to keep. Instead, it will pass like a storm that was seen early, prepared for, and navigated with clarity. You will remain steady. You will remain grounded. And more importantly, you will come out of this with greater awareness than you had before. Because when a storm is faced with alignment, it becomes exposure instead of destruction. It reveals what was hidden. It shows you what was forming. It gives you clarity that you would not have had otherwise. And when it passes, you are not the same. You are stronger, sharper, and more aware of how to moving forward. That is the outcome of listening. But there is another path, and it is the one most people fall into without realizing it. If this warning is ignored, if this awareness fades, if you return to distraction, to automatic reactions, to comfort over clarity, then the storm will not wait. It will not slow down. It will not adjust itself to give you another chance to prepare. It will arrive as pressure. It will arrive as confusion. It will arrive as a moment where everything feels urgent, unclear, and overwhelming at the same time. And in that moment, without awareness, decisions will be made too quickly. Reactions will take the place of clarity. Movement will replace stillness. And what could have been avoided will instead be experienced directly. This is not punishment. This is consequence. Because awareness that is ignored does not disappear. It becomes the difference between preparation and reaction. You must understand this deeply. A storm itself is not what determines the outcome. Your state of awareness when it arrives does. There are people who will go through this exact moment and not understand why things unfold the way they do. They will blame circumstances. They will blame others. They will call it bad timing, bad luck, or unexpected disruption. But you will know the truth. You will know that this moment was revealed ahead of time. You will know that the signs were already there. You will know that the choice existed before the impact, and that knowledge places you in a position of responsibility, but also in a position of power, because now you are not reacting blindly. You are choosing consciously, and conscious choice changes outcomes. If you remain aligned, if you hold your awareness, if you continue to move with intention, then what is coming will not control you. It will not define your direction. It will not remove what is meant for you. Instead, it will pass through your environment while leaving your position intact. You will see it clearly. You will understand it fully, and you will remain untouched by its deeper impact. But if you drift even slightly, if you allow distraction to return, if you dismiss what you have now recognized, if you lower your awareness back to where it was before this message, then the clarity you have now will fade, and you will meet the storm without the understanding that was given to you. That is the difference between being warned and being unprepared. And this is why this moment matters so much. Because you are not being left to guess. You are not being left in confusion. You are being shown both outcomes before the moment arrives, so that when it does, you already know where you stand. This is not about fear. This is about choice. A clear, present, undeniable choice between alignment and distraction, between awareness and reaction, between preparation and consequence. And now you cannot say you were not given the opportunity to choose correctly, because you were. Right here, right now. And what remains is the final warning, the last call before everything reaches its peak. A moment where there will be no more preparation, no more explanation, no more time to adjust. Only action. And that is what you must be ready for next. Type "I choose the right path" in the comments if you stand in this truth. Blessing code 1111 is now sealing your awareness and outcome. This is it. The final moment before everything shifts from preparation into reality. There are no more layers to uncover. No more signs to interpret. No more time to delay or second guess what you have already been shown. Because what is forming has reached its final stage, and the window you have been given, the space to align, to adjust, to become aware, is now closing. This is the last call. Archangel Michael is not repeating himself. He is not extending the warning again and again. He is standing firm, unwavering, and clear. The storm is no longer approaching slowly. It is at the edge of release. And what happens next will not be determined by chance. It will be determined by whether you fully stepped into alignment or whether you allowed yourself to drift back into distraction. Feel the weight of that. Because this is not just another moment in your life. This is a defining point. You have been shown what others will not see until it is too late. You have been guided to recognize what others will dismiss. You have been positioned to stand where others will stumble. And now, the only thing left is whether you will hold that position when it matters most. Because the storm will break. Not maybe. Not eventually. But soon. And when it does, you will move quickly. It will not pause to give you time to think. It will not slow down to let you catch up. It will reveal itself in real time, demanding awareness, demanding stability, demanding that you remain exactly where you have been positioned. This is where everything you have learned must become who you are. You will feel the pressure. You will see the shift. You will recognize the moment. And in that instant, there will be a choice, not one you think about slowly, but one you act on immediately based on what you have already become. Will you remain still or will you react? Will you stay aligned or will you be pulled into the noise? Will you trust what you now know or will you fall back into what feels familiar? That is the final test. And understand this clearly. Michael is still standing between you and the storm. That has not changed. The protection is still active. The barrier is still holding. But your position within that protection must now be held with full awareness. Because the storm does not break the protected. It only consumes the unprepared. And you are not unprepared anymore. Not after everything you have seen. Not after everything you have felt. Not after everything you now understand. This is why this message found you. This is why you were pulled into this moment. This is why something inside you would not let you ignore it. Because you were meant to stand, to remain, to endure without being shaken. And when the storm passes, and it will pass, you will not be standing in loss. You will not be standing in confusion. You will be standing in clarity, in strength, in a position that proves you moved correctly when it mattered most. That is your outcome. But it depends on what you do now, not later, not when it feels easier. Now, hold your awareness. Protect your alignment. Trust what has been revealed to you. And do not move from this position no matter what unfolds around you. Because this is the final warning. And once it passes, there will be no need for another. Type "I will stand" and not be moved in the comments if you receive this final call. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing your protection, your path, and your outcome. As you stand firm in this final warning, understand this sacred truth. Your obedience does not end with hearing. It continues through action that multiplies this light into other lives. Every seed you release into this mission becomes a flame that reaches someone still standing in darkness. Someone who has not yet heard what you just received. The Lord declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." And right now, your giving becomes a prophetic act that opens rivers of blessing not only for others, but for you. I feel this deeply. When I give in this moment through the PayPal link in the description or the QR code on the screen, I am stepping into alignment with God's work, helping His voice reach where it must go. This is not support. It is spiritual movement. It is obedience. It is participation in something greater than yourself. Do not hesitate. Do not delay, because this moment carries weight in the unseen. Release your seed now. Step into this divine flow and become part of the mission that is awakening souls across the world.